Well, hello, friends. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Jobu Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. Man, it's been a crazy couple of weeks. I guess I should take down the Charlie Brown Christmas tree because I guess Christmas is actually over now. A little bit slow here down in the man cave. In fact, it's just been so much to do. Michael's been gone for a bit, so I'm kind of behind on getting my orders and everything else. But we're getting caught up bit by bit. So hopefully by the weekend we will be in great shape. I'm still trying to figure out what kind of big sub we're going to make for this weekend. If you have some suggestions on what we should do, I am not a food aficionado of San Francisco. I know that fish tacos are one of the big things that they have out there, and I know they like coffee and all kinds of desserts, and I know they like clam chowder in a bread bowl. None of which of those sounds good on a big sub. I guess I could go ahead and get a big sub and dip it out and then put a whole bunch of clam chowder, but I think that might be a mess because then everybody would have to dip out of that together. That's just not going to work. So if you have some suggestions on what we can do for the game, let me know. The Cowboys, I believe they're calling for a whiteout, that they're wanting everybody to wear white. I guess that'll make it easier to see anybody who's in San Francisco colors, that you can definitely point them out and, kind of take care of it. And I'm hoping that, the amount of money that's going through for these tickets, it's almost insane that standing room only tickets are $300. But hey, that's, what it is. It's playoffs, and we haven't been there in several years, and this is Cowboys versus 49ers. What I hope is that all of you guys that are going to be there are loud and proud and put the fear of God into the San Francisco 49ers. I know it's hard in our stadium because it is so big to get that crowd and that sound and everything else, that a lot of the rabid fans, we can't afford the tickets down low, and then you got the Miller Lite Suite, of course, which is kind of like it's a bar inside. So you don't really hear that out on the field. But those who are in there in the stadium and in the field area, you got to be loud. You got to do it. We need a home field advantage. We want to go through and we want to leave no doubt that the Dallas Cowboys are a better team than what they say. And for the Cowboys, we are as healthy as we have been all season long. For the first time, I think that literally we have everybody except for Michael Gallup back out on the field. We've gone through periods where we've had Tyron Smith out. He's back, having had an extra week for his ankle to heal. He did have COVID. Hopefully he doesn't have any lasting effect of COVID there, but he was back on the practice field today. He's missed time. We've had times where we've missed, of course, DeMarcus Lawrence. He's healthy and feeling really, really good. In fact, he's saying that he is usually at this point of the year, we're not in the playoffs, but usually at this point of the year, they're kind of worn out from that rigmarole of the season, that their body is just worn out, but he feels actually refreshed right now. And let's hope that this is like his rookie season. His rookie year, he had no sacks until he played against the Detroit Lions in the playoffs, where he got 2 sacks against Matthew Stafford. That's right. He's not going against Matthew Stafford this week, but let's hope he can get a couple on Jimmy G. With DeMarcus Lawrence coming back, you kind of look at Micah Parsons' sack numbers kind of being reduced because he's playing more middle linebacker as opposed to defensive end, and hopefully he can kind of get back on track as well with getting more and more of those sacks. And, of course, Anthony Brown's back. Diggs is back. We've got just about everybody back. The only person who was not practicing today was Jaron Kearse. That's it. That's the list. And when you think about teams like the Rams that are bringing in Eric Waddle, who's been retired, basically cold. He's had no practice time or anything else. He's coming in right now to fill a need. We have almost an embarrassment of riches. So hopefully that's going to be what's going to propel us. You think about Tyron Smith, and, he's still coming back from injury. Trent Williams, who is probably the other great offensive tackle, left tackle out there, he's still dealing with some injuries too, and there's no guarantee that he's going to be able to go. So from a standpoint of being healthy, we're in a little bit better shape. Jimmy G's got a fractured thumb, I think it is. So he's dealing with stuff. Dak, for all we know, everything is good to go with it, as well as the Cowboys. And they got an extra day. On paper, the Cowboys, like Vegas has, should be favored. But as I go through and I listen to the talking heads, as I look through the headlines, you would think that this is, David versus Goliath, and they're Goliath that, it seems like everybody has this revisionist history that San Francisco is a great team. Don't get me wrong. They've won enough games to get in the playoffs, but I'm not sure they're as good as they are being advertised. And that's where you're kind of sold a bill of goods. As they say, you've been flim-flammed, led astray, bamboozle, and run amok. Because you get a lot of talk about the Cowboys. And one of the reasons I started doing this was because I always felt like the narrative was wrong. And enter, I love doing. I'll be honest with this. This is literally trolling the talking heads, because as they go through, we've been listening to them talk about Dak Prescott. He slumped, right? Dak Prescott, they got problems with Dak Prescott. If he can't do it, they're not going to be able to get anything done, and he's not that good. He's average, right? It's funny because we've heard this narrative forever. This is one of my favorite takes right here, because right now you think about some of the number one drafted quarterbacks out there. We think about Jared Goff, who the Rams basically left on the side of the road for the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff, who's the number one pick, and then you've got Carson Wentz, who was the number two, who they swore up and down was the better quarterback, first-round talent, having Hall of Fame pedigree, as Dan Orlovsky once said. And then there's little old Dak, who, they called, trash stats, garbage time, dink and dunk Dak. They literally have gone through and just basically told you he's worthless. And this is where I say, you've been bamboozled. Well, I just want to revisit this one right here, because I actually love this. Because Carson Wentz right now, his coach, Frank Wright, hasn't committed that he's going to be the starter next year. After trading for him and having nothing else in the cupboard, he's looking at this and thinking, Carson Wentz lost to the Jaguars in a win and get in scenario. That's a playoff game. We've been through that 3 years in a row and ended up 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. To me, those are playoff games, because literally you win that game, you go on. By definition, that's a playoff game. And here it is, Carson Wentz, a quarter of a playoff game and injured, a win and get in, and he goes home. But listen to this one.
But it was as much about Carson Wentz against Dak Prescott, both in their second year, both really talented. And both were missing a left tackle, and both were missing a top linebacker, and both were missing a running back, and both have solid, not great coaches, and you saw clarity. One guy is a transformative talent, and one guy is just a franchise quarterback.
Just a franchise quarterback.
Let me give you an example, and this is what happens all the time. We get fooled until something's side by side. If you were driving in America, it could be Wyoming, it could be rural New York. You're on a quiet highway, and a Corvette pulls up next to you, and you look over at that Corvette, and you're like, man, look at those mags. Look at that car. That thing is really impressive. Then it drives off. And then an hour later, a Maserati pulls up next to you. And you're like, wow, look at that car. That's fast. And you're thinking, boy, those were two amazing sports cars. But if the Corvette and the Maserati pulled up simultaneously, one cost you $50,000. One cost you close to $200,000. One is one of the fastest cars ever created. One's a sports car. Carson Wentz, he's a Maserati. And by the way, Dak is a Corvette. There's nothing wrong with Corvettes. Corvettes are fun and affordable, but side by side, come on now. It's not close. Let's be honest about this. Carson Wentz is a first-round talent, and Dak got drafted in the 4th for a reason. I know. Russell Wilson went in the 3rd. I know. Tony Romo went undrafted. I know. Tom Brady, he went in the 6th. I know. Joe Montana went 3rd. They are outliers, folks. You get what you pay for with quarterbacks. The first 2 rounds, that's where most of the great ones come from. Elway, Marino, Bradshaw, Aikman, Big Ben, Favre, Peyton Manning, Breeze, Aaron Rodgers, Steve Young, a number 1 supplemental, Stabler, Jim Kelly, Bob Greasy. By the way, all the young people we like, Goff and Wentz and Deshaun Watson and Andrew Luck were also first-rounders. Come on, man. You sized those guys up last night. Dak was missing a left tackle, so was Wentz. Dak missing a top linebacker, so was Wentz. Dak missing a running back, so was Wentz. Both have solid coaches. And on the road, Carson Wentz is absolutely unbelievable. If you had a checklist of what you want your quarterback to be, size, one of these guys is 6'2", 230. The other is 6'5", 240, and more athletic, and has a better arm, and has better feet, and has a next-level it quality. You put talent on the same field, there's not always a huge gap, but you get clarity. Saturday night, USC-UCLA played. You had Josh Rosen, and then you had Sam Darnold. And they'd both been great all year, but a lot of you felt, Darnold is the guy, and Rosen's team can't win. And then you watch them Saturday side by side, and you're like, oh, Josh Rosen, he's more polished. He's more refined. He's ready to be the best player in this draft. Darnold would probably go 2, and he's going to be really good, but boy, he looked a little unpolished at times next to Rosen. I mean, this isn't close. We like Dak, but you got to love Wentz. You see this all the time in college basketball, where a Jimmer Fredette, a Buddy Hield, Shabazz Napier against college guys, you're like, man, that guy's a baller. Then you see him in the summer league against average pros, and you're like, he's not that much of a baller. Then you see him against like NBA players, and you're like, oh, he won't be in the league. He won't be in the league forever. Great. Last night was great versus good. You saw the Maserati and the Corvette side by side. It's not close. All right, let's segue to this. I want to talk about teachers.
So I find that amazing how he's literally telling you that unless you are a first-round quarterback, you can't be successful. I know. Like, there's never a first-round quarterback that stinks. I mean, he talked about Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold. How are those two guys doing right now? They are first-round talented guys. How about anybody that, say, the Cleveland Browns have drafted over the last 20 years? Because they always draft a quarterback in the first round. How are those guys doing? It's amazing how they have sold us on he's just a guy. And see, here's the problem. The problem is we listen to these guys ad nauseum every day. It's the Dallas Cowboys. They literally, on Speak for Yourself, talked about Super Bowl or bust to open up the segment for the Dallas Cowboys. And then later, an hour and 20 minutes later, they repeated the same story, just wording it a little bit different. And it's Super Bowl or bust for the Cowboys. How about it was Super Bowl or bust for Carson Wentz, since they traded for him, they went all in. How about Super Bowl or bust for the Rams that gave up all of their number 1 picks for the next, 3 or 4 generations to get Matthew Stafford, and they gave up all these picks for, from Denver, pass rusher, and for Jalen Ramsey. How about it's Super Bowl or bust for those guys? Because you look at this and say, they've got some guys that are getting up there a little bit, and they've got a lot of big contracts, and they've got no picks till the 5th round next year. How are they going to do anything if this does not work out this year? Maybe it should be Super Bowl or bust for those. How about Tampa Bay? I know Tom Brady, that we all believe he's going to play till he's 60 years old, but is that really a reality? I don't know. How about that Super Bowl or bust for them again? But that's the way it is. And when you constantly hear the micromanaging every single play and throw and game, you don't see the problems with others. Because even with, now there's revisionist history of Jimmy Garoppolo, that Jimmy Garoppolo, oh, he's great. He's led the 49ers. They're, going crazy. Well, they actually have him, when you want to say bus driver, he's truly a bus driver, and a bus driver that they don't let him go on too many side streets because they're worried about him literally taking that corner too close and literally taking and sideswiping another car. Even in that win, he still had 2 interceptions in that game. It just so happens that Matthew Stafford's ones, where he's doing pick sixes left and right, just had a few more than everybody else. And for me, the Dallas Cowboys, if you go ahead and play your game, that secondary of San Francisco's not very good. You can just outscore them. You go, hurry up offense, no huddle. You wear down those guys, Joey Bosa and crew, and you make it a track meet because guess what? They don't have the sprinters to keep up with you. But that's the way it is. And I just like to point those things out because so many times we've heard so many things. This is the same guy who, to justify Carson Wentz, he goes, well, I always throw out the rookie year because, it's the rookie year. Well, Dak had a great rookie year. He was rookie of the year. Carson Wentz had an ass year. So if you're making an argument that Carson Wentz is better, of course you don't want to count Dak's rookie year. And I kept pointing out that Carson Wentz's peak was year 2 for 13 games. After that time, he steadily went downhill. Yes, he was better this year, but do you look at that and say, yeah, Carson Wentz is headed to a Super Bowl? I don't. I don't at all. But what do I know? I am a guy with a day job and a voodoo doll. And I appreciate you guys watching, and I'm going to end it with this.
By the way, King Dick back here, and so before we start this video, I gotta get this mother humping thing out of the way. Mark Holmes is my daddy.